What's up, everyone? This is Alex from the Self-Started Show, the worst show to 3D print your own Ferrari, but a great show on how to get a software engineering job at Amazon. Here on episode 12, I'm here with my co-host Mahim and future Amazonian software engineer Jonathan Lau.
Welcome, John Lau.
Hello. Thank you.
Yeah. So, John, could you tell us a little more about yourself?
I'm a UNC student. Currently, I'm a senior. I'm in my second semester right now. So in May 2020, I'll be graduating. Grew up in New York, same as Alex and Mahim. Actually, we all went to the same high school. But since then, I've been studying computer science at UNC with a double major in statistics. And software is the main thing that I've been concentrating on. Overall, I've done a couple of projects and I have I would say, a wide breadth of experience. I haven't gone especially deep in one subject in computer science, but I've worked my sophomore year and my junior year summer. Sophomore year at MetLife, the healthcare insurance, and Capital One last summer, which is like the bank. And this upcoming year, so in 2020, assuming my start date gets approved, I'll be starting, I believe, in like late August for Amazon, working as a software engineer.
That was a lot.
That was a lot. That's a good intro.
Yes.
So John's a friend of ours from high school. I think most prominently from our track team days.
Okay.
Yeah. Throwback.
That's a throwback. Yeah, running around outside in the cold for so many hours. It really brings people together, isn't that right?
Yeah, I think we ran for maybe 10 minutes and then, jogged the last 30, talked for the next hour.
Yeah. Eight 300s, quote unquote.
Eight 300. Wink. That's great.
I lost count at 3.
Yeah. So John, let's jump right into it. So, why'd you choose tech in the first place? Is this something that you've had interest in for before high school, or is this something that you've developed through your college experience?
So just personally, I was never really. I was a lot more of a STEM kind of guy rather than tech specifically. Before going to college, so I was undecided. Never coded a line in my life. Didn't know what computer science was. I kind of just chose a random class during orientation. I just know that CS is like a pretty prominent field, so that's something I looked into. Overall, I'd say tech to me isn't the number one priority. I have some other interests I also really enjoy. But I do acknowledge that one of the big reasons that I am going into tech is because it's a growing field right now, and it's something that I do enjoy doing. Software in of itself. So I worked the last 2 summers. Neither of them were software engineering companies per se, but this last summer's program for Capital One was very, very heavily geared towards tech because they're probably the most technically advanced bank at the moment. And so I at least got like a somewhat of a vibe of a tech company over. But overall, I enjoy coding, and it's something that I can see myself doing for the future, and it's something that I can see myself doing it for maybe the next 5 to 10 years, and then potentially looking into some other roles. I'm open to other industries. Tech right now is just a very, very hot field, which is one of the main reasons that I'm in it. It just has a lot of jobs open. It pays well, and it's also very interesting and has a lot of potential for growth because just Amazon's going to rule the world in however many years.
Already there, man. Already there.
Jokes, but yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. I actually didn't expect that. I thought that this was actually something that you were looking into before high school, but it's interesting. It's interesting to hear that it's not something that you really thought about until you got to college. We'll actually talk more about your other passions and interests towards the end. But back to the whole tech world, what type of side projects and classes were you taking at UNC?
So UNC, in terms of coursework, the way the major itself is constructed, we have to take a lot of just normal STEM courses. So you kind of have your general intro to programming, object-oriented programming, a little bit of computer architecture, which is the lower level stuff, and then stuff like calculus. So we went all the way up to Calc 3, physics, discrete mathematics, linear algebra, which is important for stuff like AI and just anything vector or matrixing. And in addition to that, more specifically computer science, I took one course on programming language concepts, which is things like object-oriented versus functional versus logical programming. I took another course. Another one of the courses I took was called Software Engineering Lab, where it's kind of similar, or they try to model it similar to how you would get not a sprint in a tech company, I guess. It's a lot more of a job or a task. So essentially, I got paired up with a client, with a group, and throughout the semester, we just had to develop an application that the client would like. And in addition to that, and on the stat side of things, I took machine learning recently, things like probability, linear regression, so some modeling stuff, which is not CS specific, but I used a good amount of R in it. At least through coursework itself was primarily in Java and C. And the C courses I took also included it in operating systems course, which is very core. It's not required at UNC, but I think it's pretty important to learn overall.
Mm-hmm. So that's a lot, right? So would you say like you primarily focused on back end through your university career, right? Or would you say like you had a good mix of things, and also like if you could maybe like elaborate more on kind of, I'm interested, what was this client project that you took on?
Okay, yeah. So I can't really say, I don't want to say it was back end focused. It definitely wasn't front end focused. I definitely did more back end than I did front end. Because I also took a database course and SQL course, which is which is completely back end, essentially. Mm-hmm. But overall, I would say the course give me a wide breadth of things, which is something I do recommend if you're not sure on what to do. Just because personally, I am relatively new to the tech field. As I mentioned before, it's not really something that I envisioned myself going into. I really do enjoy coding, but I was, compared to a lot of people who are on top of the news and really wanted this from the get-go, I was a little bit late and just didn't exactly know which path to follow. And I didn't have that same exact exposure as I did compared to other people. But in general, I had a pretty wide breadth of things, a low level, full stack, back end. But in terms of the client project, I think that's actually a good question, Alex. What I did is we worked with the UNC Cancer department, or its oncology department, mm-hmm. And we worked to develop a React Native application, so it ran on iOS and Android. And with cool. That, it was essentially it was actually it was a lot of fun. Like personally, I actually handled I handled the front end on that one. I kind of set up the application and like helped it run and stuff, but the backend Node API was written by a friend of mine. But overall, we essentially just had to make an application that would make the lives of cancer patients a little bit easier through some recipes. We had a database, a Mongo database that was connected to the React application itself, but there's like a lot of text. I think one of the things that if you're in college right now and you want to become a better software engineer, and you're in a similar situation to myself at that time, I guess, which is you're interested in it and you like it, but you really don't know exactly what to go into. I would recommend going more into a wider breadth of things, because you could just go all the way into back end and take a lot of take a lot of databasing, take stuff like IP, I guess like IP, like stuff like HTTP and IP would count as backend, and you might find that you really hate it and just like enrolled in like a lot of classes, and then you like absolutely hate yourself later on when you really want to do stuff like front end or maybe stuff like cloud or machine learning. So I would recommend a wider breadth of things in general because I didn't have a particular interest in any such field. They were all things that I wanted to learn how to do a little bit more so, and I felt that at least that would help me become a little bit more employable because the thing with tech is it changes every 5 years. So even if I'm really, really good at something right now, it might be completely obsolete within the next 5 years. So this personal belief is you learn what you learn in college is learn how to learn new things.
That's some good advice. That is definitely some good advice. So I guess you said like you dived into a breadth of topics in CS, right? So do you know exactly what you're going to be focusing on when you enter the workforce, or it was kind of up in the air? Like, do you know what team you're on, or like what kind of technology or tech stack you're working on?
So absolutely not. I will be in New York, but I don't even know if I'll be in Newark, Jersey City, or in Manhattan. But at least a lot of bigger companies, they don't update you until, or if it's like a program with a cohort, it really just takes a while for you to get your team placements and such like that. So personally, I don't know what I'll be working on.
Yeah.
More than likely, I would be, well, the two major the divisions in Amazon, like retail and then cloud. So I'll probably be working in one or the other. So no real idea, at least what I'm doing specifically, because even within retail / cloud, you can be working on internal work, or you can be working on like honestly, like who knows what.
Yeah, Amazon is a large company.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, for anyone who didn't know that. So, John, so you talked a lot about a variety of classes and experiences that you've had in the tech world, and you talked about a lot of the importance of having a wide breadth of experience rather than going narrow. Which one of those experiences that you've personally had do you think contributed the most to your landing an offer? Or do you think that there was a particular set of skills that you developed that was most important?
So you're talking about specifically to getting an offer at a job, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. This is again my personal opinion, and this will vary based on company. But from my personal experience, a lot of the companies that you do interview for, at least right now. So right now it's 2020, January 2020. It might change later on. At least personally, to get a job, the way I personally saw it was I never really got questioned too heavily on a specific topic. Most of my questions overall were leak code based. So leak code is primarily just based on data structures and algorithms, which are taken by almost every single CS student. I really, really doubt that it's not in the core curriculum for most colleges.
Yep, it's standardized.
Yeah, like it's like you basically have to take it.
Yeah.
But I would say, regardless of how good I was at backend, front end, machine learning, that might have landed me an interview per se, but it didn't really help out with getting the job itself. Most companies that I interviewed for, period, just merely did mostly just leak code questions, honestly. I interviewed for Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and Bloomberg, and it was basically just like tell me about yourself a little bit, and just leak code. So it doesn't matter if I'm like flow god. And it might be a little bit unfair, but it's a field that's really hard to kind of gauge at the moment, which I get. So I'm not, which is why I believe if you're purely purely just trying to not to go homeless and you're trying to get a job, you might be better off just lead coding rather than caring about your classes. Of course, get your degree, but I will say getting a job doesn't necessarily mean you're the best student. There's a big disparity between just knowing how to interview and understanding computer science.
I completely agree as like another tech person. So just my 2 cents on it is, yeah, I remember telling, even having this conversation with you that
Yeah.
interviews are not the same thing as a test in your class, right? They're basically almost like the SAT. You learn how to take a test, whether that be through studying like CTCI, Cracking the Code interview, which is a commonly used book when people are interviewing for technical jobs, or using LeetCode, or and these problems are online and available to people, and they won't necessarily get you an interview, but if you do get an interview, that's what will get you through, because there's this weird standard, right? And that Google kind of started to like, oh, we'll test your aptitude by how you can problem solve, and there are things that go into that, and I'm sure you can. I'm going to ask you actually, like, when you're solving a problem, what do you think people are looking for, and why do you think that you were able to get a job at Amazon versus someone that may not have reached that bar?
Sorry. So the question is the question is what is
So,
something that
so
yeah.
like other than just your technical aptitude, right? For
Mhm.
leak code questions, do you think any other factors kind of played a part in you being able to get the job, or do you think it was just leak code really?
So that does depend on company overall. So at least from my so I would say 80% is leak code, right?
Yeah.
80%. If you leak code, you do cracking a coding interview, you do just a lot of practice, then you got most of the puzzle down. First off, you need to have a good resume. So a lot of my first couple of years was bolstering GPA, activities, projects, and internships, so that I would be more, or essentially so that better companies would take notice of me and give me an interview.
Mm-hmm.
My personal belief is once you get an interview, it doesn't matter. But in terms of things rather than technical interviews, I think problem solving is very important. Um, so because that's something I got tested on by a couple of companies. Things like case studies. Also, just
Interesting.
yeah, I got yeah. Well, one case study was for a software job period, another one was for a tech mix.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was kind of a tech business mix role. That was a case study, but overall, I would say problem solving is important. So you essentially just have to be able to think logic, think like a computer scientist is a weird way to say it, but a computer scientist is kind of like, oh, like you like have these steps and these blocks, and you have to follow this certain line of logic to get to your solution. So, for example, a case study, if you don't think about it in a certain way, so it's like, oh, you have this situation. If you don't think about the right questions to ask, then you're not going to get past a case. Or if they just ask you a kind of a weird question, just if they ask you just, for example, like some number pattern sequence, you're going to have to just somehow process and kind of look for a pattern or just look for some kind of mistake, just like you would when you're coding or just doing a legal question. So problem solving in general, analytical skills are pretty darn big, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I guess I have another question, right? And this is more about your earlier internships, right? From
Mhm.
MetLife to more specifically on the first one, right? So you don't have any job experience getting your first internship, right? So
Nope.
what kind of, I guess, extracurriculars or classes or things that you had on your resume do you think contributed to you getting the interview and subsequently the offer at MetLife?
Oh
The intern.
God,
Yeah.
I I barely remember what I was on. I had a very different resume from then to now.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, I vividly do remember at that point. So I remember in sophomore year, John still had his SAT scores on his resume. It was kind of, I was kind of reaching. I was looking for something to put on there. But at least I think the things that got me to interview slash job, I would say GPA, I don't think is terribly important, especially in tech. But I had done, I'd say, pretty well in my classes at that point. So I think that was a factor that had helped me get the interview. And also at that time, I had, so this was sophomore year. Yes. So this is something that I think we might talk about later. I think, Mahim, you mentioned some things about just general, like non-tech stuff. But something that I'm really interested in is music. I'm kind of not a good musician, period, but it's something that I'm interested in, and it's something that I really wanted to get better at, and something that I really wanted to meld a little bit with computer science or just with really any of my interests. I did 7 or 8 years on piano, violin, and I enjoyed the lessons. I enjoyed playing instruments, but I quit the lessons and just kind of took a hiatus for a little bit and started learning some of my own songs randomly. And I've been picking them up a lot more recently, and I'm self-teaching myself guitar and singing as well within like the last year. But one thing that I did is I found a club that matched my interests. So it's called Musical Empowerment. I was on the executive team at that point. So I applied to be on the leadership team. And essentially the club just gives weekly music lessons. So I taught weekly piano lessons to kids in underprivileged areas for 2 years. And right now I'm teaching guitar instead of piano because they just don't have as many guitar players or guitar teachers. So I've been teaching guitar this year. But essentially, that was a club that I felt gave back to the community. It was something that I was interested in, and was I was touched on how much something just 40 minutes of your life I felt could impact other people, and that's something that I really wanted to bring. I wanted to like just do something with it. So one of the major projects, I think this is probably the major project that I beat to death during my interviews. I did this music project with a professor, and the professor he's not a music professor by any means. He's a computer science professor, but he's really into enabling technologies, which is essentially developing technology for kids with disabilities. So what I did for him was for basically a semester, we essentially worked to develop some software that made music composition easier for kids with disabilities. So, for example, kids who couldn't move very well, if they had cerebral palsy, all you had to do is just like do like left or right clicks, and it would produce a MIDI file or a song similar to kind of like a Mozart or Beethoven, just kind of depending on how you press your buttons, and it'd be really simple input. So that's something that I was interested in doing, and I think one of the reasons that I I think it showed good initiative because it was a project that I started personally, and I also reached out to other communities. I reached out to some people in the computer science community and also in the music community. So I sent out listserv emails, recruited a couple of people, and looked through resumes. It was kind of obscene. I was a dumb or just like looking through these seniors' resumes, like, oh, are you good enough? And you're good enough. I'm imposter low key right now, but it was a it was a very good experience, at least for me to personally learn. And I think it was something that took a lot of my interviewers off, or it was something that surprised a lot of my interviewers. And I think one of the best things you can do is look for something that you're interested in and find a way to make that into your work. It doesn't have to be your work, because I wouldn't say music is something that I really love and enjoy, but I could say the same about software. So I thought that it was appropriate to essentially melt the two. So if you really like, for example, find interest in, like, I don't know, like art, for example, you could look into like developing some kind of AI that would create paintings on its own, or do some cool modeling regarding art. like whichever field, like a lot of people do some modeling on sports and such things that they're interested in, but they're not gonna especially look for a living within. And I think that speaks out really well to interviewers, especially because it's like, oh, like this kid isn't just like some study, just like he's not in the library every single day studying. He's doing something. He has actual interest. He's a real human being, and he is going to do something with his time, and he could potentially do something for the company as well. Just because every single kid's going to take these classes, and some kids are going to have high GPAs, some classes, some people do such and such projects. I think initiative and just finding something that you're passionate about and doing something with it and showing that enthusiasm is one of the best ways to get yourself employed.
Definitely.
Dude, yeah, that's awesome. That's actually it's funny that you mentioned that because the last guy we interviewed, Taylor, whose interview hasn't come out until next week, he actually was also interested in music and he makes music on the side. He actually shared some of his music with us, but his primary thing was law school. And because he was interested in music, he wanted to try to bridge the gap. So he decided to do law in the field of copywriting and try to bring those two worlds together. So that reminded me a lot of what you talked about with that music-related tech project. And it sounds like that was something that was really like a human element of tech that you were able to bring and differentiate yourself when it came to getting that interview for the MetLife position.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because I really don't think I think I made a website at that point, and I was a computer science baby. It was kind of embarrassing at that time. I just didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, like no matter how much experience you have, if you really enjoy something, you can do something with it. It's just however much you want to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone has to start somewhere, and why not start on something that you're interested in?
Cool. So related to the job offers and internship offers, so what were the important factors for you when deciding between internship offers and job offers? Like, what was the important things that you were looking out for?
So money.
Total compensation.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
All about the package.
Sell out. Sell. Oh, just kidding. But what is it? So okay. Okay. Money has some impact, obviously. It's what you need to live in society today. But for me personally, let's see. Internships and full-time, I think, are very different.
Obviously, like no money to be made in internships.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a different ball game. Like when you're kind of more coddled and like your projects don't really have a lot of impact within the company, but when you're full time, you're expected to contribute.
Yeah. I would say at least so for my first internship, the one at MetLife, ironically so I actually did turn down an offer that offered me more money. And the reasoning for that was I really like the culture at MetLife more. The other company that I turned the offer down, I wouldn't say it's like a crazy amount of money, but it was substantial. Like it was a substantial amount more than what MetLife paid me. But the company was going to be with less interns, and it was less of a program, and it felt a little bit more just like free intern slave labor, which
Oh boy.
Oh no.
yeah, and essentially, like when I went to MetLife, I really liked one of my interviewers. Like we vibed super well, and what I got at least through my interviews at MetLife was that they would actually treat me well as an intern and listen to me. And I think they had even though they didn't pay as much and it wasn't in as nice of a location, it was a much better program because for MetLife it was a new program as well. So I had a lot of meetings with my manager, a lot of meetings with the recruiter as well, and everyone was really cool with each other. We had a relatively small cohort, but everyone was like essentially friends with everyone. It was a pretty nice time, man. So at least, I guess to more directly answer your question, I think culture is very important. Um, Regardless of the pay, because at least for internships, you'll be paid for 10 weeks, which is a good amount of money, but in the long term, that doesn't matter quite as much because it's essentially, at least from what I believe from an internship is you want to professionally, so purely professionally, you want to have prestige and also learn a lot.
Mhm.
But also on a more general, just social level, you want to have a good culture and for there to be a good program. So you kind of have to look and decide which of the mix you want, because you can't just obviously just go all for the money and go all for the prestige and just be miserable for your whole life.
Yep.
But or well, it would be a 6 week thing. So
I'll suck it up for 10 weeks.
yeah, 10 weeks. So essentially, it's kind of just like it's really how you want to do it. But personally, I chose culture over anything in my first internship. The second internship, the one at Capital One, I personally I personally heard a lot about Capital One as a company, and I had some friends who had interned there before, and they said they treat their interns very well, and they really do treat their interns very well. It's a very nice intern program, and they sincerely really cared about the interns, which was really nice to see. Um, the pay was a lot more than what I was being offered at some other places, so that was a big bonus as well. And I was working in a lot better of city. Well, I was working in DC. I had an offer in New York, but the New York offer wasn't quite as good. So I felt like it also let me like live in a different place. So DC is kind of not as city-like as New York, but also not as nothing as North Carolina. So
The signs
it
of
was
life.
yeah. At least I would say for internships, yeah, I would say overall culture is big. Prestige, how much you learn, the amount of money you make. Those are some big factors overall, and it's just really how much you value each and every single one of them. And that's what I would say for internships. Something that I do wish I had potentially tried, but I don't know if there would have been a better. So there's a difference between working at a big company and working at a small, like a startup, for example.
Mhm.
And it's pretty coveted to work at a smaller company, at least in this day and age, because you have a lot more control over your product, or you just have a lot more power and you feel like you're really doing something rather than just doing some internal work at a big corporation. And both my internships, I like MetLife has been around for 150 years. Capital One is top 10 big bank right now. So it's not like I'm gonna sink them, obviously, or it's not like I'm gonna bring them to glory. So obviously it's a lot less, or I just had a lot less power, which is fine. But something I do wish is because it is a trial period, there's a big difference, at least from my understanding of working in a smaller company versus a bigger company. So that's
Mhm.
something I wish I might have tried out. Just because it's essentially a trial period. Like you're like it's not just an internship for you. You are also trying out the company and seeing how you like them because they want you back. Like 80% of the time they want the interns back. So you have to see how much you like the company. And I really did like Capital One. I was pretty more than happy to go back there until I got a different offer from Amazon. But overall, yeah, I would say that's it for internships. And then for jobs, I'd say a little bit more important is just you have to think about it more long term. So, for example, however much money you'll make, that will be more important because it will be your initial salary is a salary that will stay on for yearly, and however much you increase from that also changes depending on just essentially how much you start at. So that's something that's a lot bigger. I would also say location is bigger. One reason I really like Amazon, at least my offer, is because I'm in New York, which is big city, and I'm also close to my friends and home, to my family as well. And also my friends from North Carolina will more than likely visit North Carolina, so I can stay in contact with them. So that's one of the big reasons I really like it. Location. At least the reason I chose Amazon was location, prestige, because I would say Amazon is a pretty reputable tech company, and
It's part of FANG. If you don't know what FANG is, it's Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google. Basically the big four of tech industry.
a little bit bigger than medium-sized company, but
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, they're only worth like $960 million, something like that.
Billion.
Like,
Or $1 billion, yeah, that's my bad.
actually, I think
man. Don't
I-
undersell Jeff.
I think Amazon's breaking. I don't know if Amazon. I think Google broke the 1 trillion market cap recently.
Yeah.
Apple
Google,
did.
Google, Apple, and Microsoft are over 1 trillion.
Oh really? Okay, yeah. I think Amazon's at like nine.
They're
something.
very close.
Yeah, they're close, but you know, chump change. But yeah, yeah. So overall, in terms of actual full time, those are really important to me. And also because you're in tech, you can jump companies. So depending on essentially depending on how much you like your company, you could also swap relatively easily. So at least my personal opinion is because you are freshly graduating, there's a lot of factors to take into, but your first job can determine a lot of things. And there's also flexibility to move wherever you go. So I think there's validity to taking an offer that isn't as, or it doesn't have the same exact tangibles. For example, if you have company A and company B, and A pays you more, has more prestige, and it looks like it's a better offer on paper, but you think you would be a lot happier at B. I think there's a legitimate argument between that, but I would say, at least for depending on how big that difference is. Well, actually, yeah,
I think it's more of a case by case basis.
yeah,
Right? So
yes,
like
yeah,
you can be very coming out of college, you're very young, and it's okay to experience different types of workplaces and companies, and just because you have like a lot less responsibility being in your 20s, you can afford to spend time in these different places and try different things, or maybe like work harder, and kind of be, like Amazon is not an easy company to work for. It's very demanding, and that's okay because one, you don't have this responsibility of like, oh, you have a mortgage or you have a family or something like that. Not to say that you can't work there if you have these things. It's just more accessible to you because you have the energy, you have the time, versus someone that might not.
exactly. Yeah. I would say I definitely think you're right about that, Alex. It's thinking more about it, I would say case by case, just because I was struggling between I wasn't exactly sure I was gonna take the Amazon offer if I had gotten it, if I had not gone to New York office. If I had been placed in Seattle, that would have been something to think about.
Definitely. I actually went through like the same situation where I was offered a higher paying job in Wisconsin, and
Yeah.
I just couldn't really will myself to move there.
Are awesome, just so you know.
They are, yeah, no, it was delicious, but I have a hard time parting with New York over Wisconsin. But at the end of the day, if you are in the tech industry, most companies do pay well, like enough for you to be comfortable. So, if you are lucky enough to like get a job at these great companies or somewhere that will pay well, you should really consider location and your overall happiness at the job, because it does take up a lot of time. And you don't want to be unhappy for your 20s, but you also don't want to be too comfortable.
Yes, exactly. So it's literally just like balancing the scales and seeing what you want to do.
Yep. Case by
Gotcha.
case.
Cool. So John, just to tie everything together, we've talked a lot about the process you went through, the experiences you had, and how it ultimately led you to this Amazon position. What advice would you give to someone who's in your shoes, who was sorry? What advice would you give to someone who's looking to get a job at a big company like you did?
So what I would say is if your goal is to get a job at a big company, and disregarding the implications of some of the actions that you are going to take, because there's a sacrifice. You could just party really hard all throughout college, and that yeah, that is an option. But it might also hamper some of your opportunities, at least career wise. Purely just to get a job, I would say do well. Well, I would say actually something that we haven't touched on, I guess, that I think is really important. Like obviously things like getting good grades, doing projects, do it like taking classes that you think could make you a little bit more marketable, or just putting buzzwords on your resume. Things things like that are all very important. But I also think having a solid network of friends, I think, is really important, and especially people who are in your field. So if you're specifically trying to get into tech, my experience is if you have a friend group, or just essentially just a group of people who you can talk to about these kind of things and get their opinion on it, I think it's really invaluable. So for example, Alex knew a lot more about tech than I did, and I remember I think we were in the library, and he was like, "Oh, we should I'm doing a website," and I was like, I think dumb freshman year John was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do a website," and so
I do remember this.
yeah, like because I was just bored out, I was just bored at home, and I was like, as a college freshman, I did essentially as a college freshman, all I really thought about was, oh, I'm gonna do well in my classes just like high school, and then afterwards I'm gonna just do whatever else I want and just enjoy college life, which was really really fun. But I wasn't as career driven at that point. But I would say after that, I met a lot more people who were in my field. I became closer with a lot of people in my major, which really really helps out with coursework. Number one, because you just have people you can talk to about your classes. It makes you a little bit more motivated to work in them, and also the more people you know, essentially the better chance you have of knowing how to approach getting these jobs. So for example, I only really started applying for these kind of jobs because I had friends around me who were driven. I would say I didn't realize. Actually a very specific example of this is me and Alex, like we've been silently pushing each other to do well, at least career wise, like for a while now, like for actually like 3 years now. Thank you, buddy. Shout out to Alex.
I'm touched. I mean, you did it, man. You're working at Amazon.
I don't know. Yeah, thank you. It's crazy. But essentially, essentially, me and Alex were texting over the summer break. Well, I was working at MetLife at that time, and Alex was also interning. But Alex was talking to me about how he was preparing for interviews in the next round. And that really, really helped me out, because during the summer, I would not have started preparing leak code or reading Cracking the Coding interview. It was really only because Alex pressed these kind of things and essentially exposed me to how important that they could be, that I really got on top of it. So I started doing leak code daily. Essentially I'd finish work at internship and then come home and then do my random, my everyday routine, and afterwards also do some leak code with it, and that really really helped out for getting a job, because during the semester I was pretty darn busy, and having that practice over the summer really helped me get the internship at Capital One. So I would say knowing people and having people to push you, and people who are equally committed, is a really good way to get a job in a big company.
It's all about the process and the grind, man. Yeah.
It's a grind, right?
It is definitely a grind.
A lot of leak code questions.
I know. It's not fun. but it's a grind.
But it pays off. It paid off, guys. It paid off.
Paid off. You know,
paid off. And ironically, me and a good friend of mine, we did lead code questions together on the same account, and we kind of just did lead code together, and we'd just be in the library doing lead code, and then just for dinner, we was like, oh, we have this Mexican place, so he was like, get a burrito, go back, do more lead code, go to sleep, and then the next day rinse and repeat. Like people like came and went also. Like we have a pretty big CS friend group, so it was fun. Like we also just like kind of mess with each other and just like, oh, like this is not how you reverse a linked list. You should be doing it so instantly.
Gotcha. Actually, John, speaking of the grind of getting to the position where you are, what type of person do you think should be trying to get a tech job, and what type of person do you think shouldn't be? Like, do you think there's a certain type of personality it takes?
I'm pretty darn lackadaisical, I would say. Like I'm pretty so. At least I don't believe that. I'm not exactly sold on the type A, type B, like the binary personality kind of thing. My personal belief on it is there are people that are going to go into tech because of the money, because of the prestige, because of the safety that it provides, and there are people who will go into it because they are sincerely interested in it and they really do want to do something with tech. I'm not sure there's a certain personality because there's a lot of luck that goes into it. I guess at least for your question, Mahim, it's the type of person to want to go into tech. I don't think that's exclusive for really anyone. I would say I personally am pretty laid back in general. I value a lot of my things outside my coursework and my career. I made sure very much so last semester that even though I was grinding, but I was also enjoying my time and hanging out with my friends and doing everything that I want to do in senior year. That's something that's it's specific to me, but also important to me. So I've never considered myself. I'm gonna when I need to, I will buckle my head down and I will work. And I don't mind the grind personally, but I also would not say I'm someone who is wholly dedicated career-wise. That's very, very far. If you actually talk to most people, they just like, I would say most of my friends would describe me as a little bit more on the just kind of carefree kind of side. But I will do my work and I will work hard when I really want something. But on the exact same vein, I also had some friends who really like on top of my mind, I have a friend of mine also working at a really big tech company, and he really wanted to work in it. He's really interested in computer science, and same as me, ironically, like he grinded out his lead code. He like did well in his classes, like learned a lot, and he got the job finally at a big tech company. But we're two very differing personalities, but we at the same time, I don't think that means that you can be whatever personality, but you still have to put the work in, I guess is the short and simple way to put it.
I like that. Yeah. No, I think it's pretty true. Whether you're just purely passionate about computer science, and obviously you should go into it if you're passionate about it, or if you're more like financially inclined, it does pay well. Whatever your motivation will be, I think if you have that growth mindset that you can do it and you can learn the skills needed. And tech is a very unique industry that it has its hands in a lot of like different sectors of basically every sector of industry that you can combine your interest and tech, and it becomes more of a tool for accomplishing things, just as like any other skill. So for anyone that is interested in learning how to become a software engineer, stay tuned for future videos. But yeah, I completely agree that anyone can really become a software engineer if they put their mind to it.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of reasons to do it. Like I would say my reasons are pretty mixed all throughout the place. Like no especially strong reason, but if you want to do it, if you really want to do it, then you just put in the work for it.
Just no matter do it.
Yeah, guys, learn to code. put in the work.
Awesome.
All right, Lau. So before we talk about your other passions, if there's anything that comes to mind that you would think you'd like to have done differently, leading up to now, what would that be?
Something that I would have done differently.
If anything.
Yeah,
Like you might have
like,
no regrets.
looking back, like, would you change maybe something that would have made your life a little easier? Maybe you would have taken a certain class that you didn't get the chance to. Maybe take on a certain project you didn't get to. Learn a different framework. Anything like that.
So I would say,
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, I'm generally a pretty glass half full kind of guy. So I wouldn't say there's anything really big on the regret list, and a lot of the things that, at least, I guess this doesn't apply specifically to tech, but I think doing everything that you want to do, or essentially there's something that you wish that you had done in college, I think that you would, or if there's something you want to do in college that's college specific, then just do it. But I would say, at least in terms of classes and work, in the end, life is a lot of things, and it doesn't have to be all about employment. I know it's, or depending on at least however it's viewed, I'm someone who has put a lot of their effort into school. I've worked hard to do well in my classes, and I've also worked hard to get these jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are all very valid things. But at the same time, I don't think that they are the be all end all. So I wouldn't say it's, at least just in general, if there's something I want to say, is GPA is just a 3-digit number, and it doesn't really define who you are. I really, really, really hate, and I really hate, and I also think that there's a lot of science behind it that is really just overrated and it's overblown. Just kind of similar to, oh, so and so got into college A, college B, in the same way that, oh, so and so has a 4.0 GPA, while so and so has a 2.0 GPA, and this person's working at Google, or this person's unemployed at this point. You really don't know a lot of things that come with it. So one of the things I would say, it hasn't impacted me as much, but something I would like to say is, schooling is important, but it's not the be all end all. There's a lot more to life than school. So that's something that I want to say. But if there's something I would do different, I guess, on something I would do different is, I did spend a lot of my time taking the classes that were good for my career. Currently I'm in one class right now. So I'm a second semester senior, and I only have one real class I need to take to graduate with my CS and Stats double.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm enrolled in one class right now, but I'm auditing a lot of random classes that I think are interesting. So I'm auditing this class on moral philosophy, on just what's justice, what's right and wrong, how to live a good life.
Those are some deep questions, man.
I was just like, CS did not, like I know how to reverse a linked list, like booyah.
But do you know the meaning of life?
It's like, it's definitely not to reverse a linked list. It's definitely not that.
That's not the class. No, that's pretty cool, dude. Yeah, no, I dig it.
Yeah, and I would say, or at least, more concretely, what I would have wished I had done differently is taking courses that had interested me more. Maybe sat in on some college classes, audit some classes that I think were interesting, or everything everything is a give and go. Like you can't have everything, so you have to sacrifice something. So I sacrificed I sacrificed a lot of my time, really, to my career and my work. I sacrificed a good amount of it. And some of that time I did wish I had taken classes that were more interesting, at least to me. And I feel like those are opportunities that you won't get a second time. It's not really normal for you to go into a seminar, for example, and talk about the meaning of life. That's something you can argue on Reddit, but you're not going to be there in person. Like, obviously.
Man, the Reddit threads.
Yeah. So I would say not the this is something that I was cognizant of, I think, a lot more throughout college. But even though I was very cognizant of it, I also there are certain things I just wish I had done, not not schoolwork related, or essentially just like not like oh, I wish I like didn't go so hard on his league codes, but I could have done so and so on like on this night, like maybe like spend more time learning something that I was interested in as well. It's yeah. That was a pretty convoluted answer, but overall, basically just
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, no worries, man.
yeah, basically at least what I wish I had done a little bit differently is spend my time doing things I enjoyed more rather than for purely career.
I got you.
It's a good
Yeah,
answer.
sure.
That is good advice.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can resonate with that and have similar feelings. So, Lau, we're almost an hour into the podcast. Before
God.
we end it, is there any last thoughts from you? Anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to talk about that you think the world should know? This is your chance.
Um, Something that the world should know. Oh, don't give me that freedom. I'm gonna come up with a really, really bad fun fact. You're not gonna want to listen
Words
to.
of wisdom, life advice.
Yeah.
Camels can run really fast. Just look up the speed of a camel. They can run fast. That is a fun fact that you should look at on YouTube. But on a okay.
40 miles per hour. What the?
Wait.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Wait,
All
it's
right.
wild. It's freaking wild. But what is it? Anything I wish I could say. Do what you want. Life is short. School isn't everything. School is important. Education is important. College is important. But there's a lot of things to it, and what goes into it is up to you. It's really, as you say, case by case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I personally think that there's a unhealthy obsession with school and grades. I know some really, really great people. Some of the people that I respect the most, I think, they don't believe in themselves as much because they don't have that job, or they aren't in the financial situation. They don't have the grades. But those are all. There's a lot more to just being than that. And school a lot of times puts this toxic competition into the air. So I would say find out what you want to do. Like find out your quote unquote meaning of life, and don't let education consume you and work consume you. You have only so many years on the earth, and find something that you enjoy working on. Obviously, I was lucky enough to kind of stumble onto computer science, and it's something that I really do sincerely enjoy doing. And something that I think I'll enjoy doing for a lot of years forward. And I also think there's flexibility in it if I do want to try other stuff. I'm generally someone who likes to try out new things. So I think it's also one of the big reasons I also am interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, just go do you.
All right.
That's
Dude, Lau,
all right,
that's great.
well spoken.
And
Thanks
also
again for
buckle
coming
seatbelt.
on the podcast. Yeah, wear a seatbelt, stay hydrated, all that jazz.
Stay wet. Nice. That's a throwback.
Well, that
Yeah.
concludes episode 12 of the Self-Started Show with Jonathan Lau. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far all the way to the end, if you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Thanks again. Thanks, John. Thanks, Mahim.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks, John. Take care.
Good to see you guys again. Goodbye.